going to start talking about SharePoint Online. We're going to go through a brief, I'm going to get about 20 slides we're going to go through. We're going to talk about, at a high level, what SharePoint Online is, what it does, and then I'm going to do some, oh, did I already see a hand raised? Carolyn, you get your hand raised? Oh, all right. Yeah,
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. Yeah, so it's going to be about 20 slides. We're going to go through just a high-level overview of what SharePoint does and what it's used for. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my demo tenant. I'm going to sort of walk you through what SharePoint looks like, how it gets used. We won't really get into anything about like creating sites or anything. We'll talk more about that on Thursday. Again, if there's any questions that come up while I'm going through, yell at me, throw something, put something in the chat. I'll try to answer them the best I can. And just to start off, and about me, so my name is Rob Leoy. Sorry, I saw the message read stop. Let me start over. My name is Rob Leoy. I've been working with SharePoint since its 2003 iteration, so quite a bit. Currently one of the Modern Work CSAs here at Microsoft. My email and my LinkedIn profile, if you want to connect, are on the slide deck. We're using PowerPoint Live, so you should be able to click on those. Let's get started talking about SharePoint Online and what it is, what it does, how it can be used. SharePoint Online, it's a cloud-based service, sits in 365, and it's pretty much the back end for a lot of different things within 365. It also serves as a collaboration tool within 365, allowing you to work amongst teams, departments, push information out, gathering information in, enhancing productivity and efficiency. Again, it's part of 365, offering seamless collaboration tools for organizations. It allows users to store, organize, share, and access information from any device. Also allows you to create websites and intranets. So if you're looking to create an intranet for your organization, or if you're looking to move your intranet to SharePoint, you can set it up and have that available for your end users. With SharePoint, essentially what you end up having is two different types of sites. You have team sites, which can either be connected to 365 groups. Those are the sites that serve as the back end for Teams. So with a Teams chat, you have a SharePoint site. You also have team sites that can be created without the 365 group. Team sites are usually going to be things like individual departments, individual teams, specific projects you're working on. A lot of times we see if you need to share content with external users via SharePoint, they'll use like a team site, and you can have it for committees. And then you have your communication sites. You think of that as sites where you're pushing information out. So any initiatives, sharing work with your organization, different communities, training and policies, updates and reports. Some examples of that are going to be, like human resources would probably usually be a communication site, versus, a mathematics department would be a team site. And it goes along with kind of what's been talked about before, where you have SharePoint also sits at the back end as the back end for OneDrive. So you think of OneDrive as, my coworker Dwayne says, OneDrive is your files, Teams is y'all's files, and then the communication site are the files that everybody gets to see, or the content everybody gets to see. So if you think of them broken out into those three sort of sections, it's a good way to sort of delineate what you're going to be using for what. Also, With team sites and communication sites, you can create a website that's fast and mobile friendly. So they are, um, they do scale to mobile devices fairly easily. You can share news and information on beautiful pages with engaging and dynamic web parts. Web parts are the pieces that make up the different pages. So you don't need to code. You don't need to know how to do HTML. You don't need to know how to do CSS. You have news features where you can push information out to end users. You can share files and data with libraries and lists. You can create customized forms and experiences with Power Apps. You can automate process with Flow. You'll be talking more about Power Apps tomorrow with Nick Miller. You can do different site designs for team sites and different site designs for communication sites. You have Office 365 groups connected to a lot of the different team sites. Again, you can have team sites without 365 groups, but the standard usually is a 365 group connected one. With communication sites, site owners will assign permissions and access to the sites. With the team sites, you get what comes along with 365 groups, the calendar, the inbox, planner, different things like that. And team sites are usually created by users or admins. Communication sites can be created by users and admins, and that's a whole different conversation that we can have. A lot of organizations will want to have their admins creating SharePoint sites, and some organizations allow end users to be able to create SharePoint sites. We'll go through a little bit of that later on. Team sites, talking a little bit more about that. You use a team site when you want to collaborate with other members of your team or with others on specific projects. Typically, all or most of the members can contribute content to a site, and the information is limited to only the members of the team or project and specific stakeholders. If you're looking to broadcast information out to a broad audience, a communication site is the better choice. And communication sites, you want to use those when you're pushing large amounts of information out to a broad audience. Typically, only a small number of users have sort of a contribute access, with a larger number of users having sort of a read-only access. So end users come in, they consume information, and then they move about their day. Whereas with a team site, that's where you're going to have a little bit more collaboration going on. You're going to have a lot more users going in, modifying documents, modifying lists, modifying forms, different things like that. Some of the benefits of SharePoint, you do have that seamless collaboration where you can share documents with other users, not having to shoot out emails all the time. You sort of get rid of that old paradigm where you have an Excel spreadsheet that gets emailed around, and then a month or two later you find out that there's like 15 different versions of said spreadsheet, all with incorrect information. So it allows you to be able to collaborate on files together, allows you to share files fairly easily and quickly with other users. There's also different features like co-authoring, where multiple people can be working on a file at the same time, which you don't get when you have like a file share. So you have different things like that. You also have different things like document libraries where you can store files within there. You can also shortcut those to your OneDrive, so you don't have to worry about bookmarking everything. You have team sites, as we talked about. You have communication sites, which we've been talking about. You also have workflows. Again, you'll talk more about that tomorrow, where you have the ability to create workflows for different documents. You can create approval workflows. You can create different workflows that update different fields, whether it's in a list or library. And you also have access control. So you're able to control who can see what, and you're able to control what permissions you have on specific documents, especially if, and we're not going to get really heavy on Copilot in this conversation. Just if you do end up going with Copilot, you're able to see what content users have access to, because you're controlling that access. It integrates with Teams. Again, because it serves as the back end with Teams, you can collaborate on documents within Teams, and you're able to share documents within Teams. Every time you have a Teams channel, all the sub-channels will be different sections within your document libraries. Workflows, just to pause for a second to answer Janine's questions, workflows will work on any type of sites. It just depends on how they're set up and how they're configured. So, if you have a limited, if you have a site where access has been limited, you can still set up a workflow. It depends on what you're looking to do, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. So if they don't have access to said site, the workflow is really not going to do much. But if they do have access, the workflow will be helpful. You also have document management, and storage with OneDrive and SharePoint. So it integrates with SharePoint. So you have different things like document management capabilities. You can store files in OneDrive and SharePoint, facilitating collaboration. And you also ensure that documents are synced across multiple devices. That will also work if you're doing things like shortcuts in OneDrive, as we've seen earlier. So if you shortcut a SharePoint document library to your OneDrive, it will sync to it. You will have access to it. You have easy file sharing in SharePoint, so you can just go and share a file with another user. If you have the ability to share with external users, you can do that as well. That's, again, a whole nother conversation, is the whole external users piece, but you do have that capability. You also have version history, which is really cool, so that if something happens, a big mistake gets made and you're not quite sure and you can't make heads or tails of it, you'll have different versions you can look at of the files to be able to say, okay, this is the version I'm looking for, and then you can restore it back to that previous version. You also have permission settings. So with the team sites, the permissions are done a little bit differently than your standard SharePoint sites. Your standard SharePoint sites, you have, a contribute permission, an owner permission, and a read permission. With the team sites, you have those three, but they're controlled through 365 groups as opposed to SharePoint groups. But you have the ability to also grant access to the SharePoint site and not necessarily the Teams channel. So you do have that capability. Some of the collaboration capabilities of SharePoint Online. So you have the ability to co-author documents. So example, if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet, previous versions of SharePoint, if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet or Word document, whoever was working on it would do something. They would check out that file so that nobody else was able to access it, which was honestly a nightmare. Nowadays, what you can do is, if you open it up, you can have multiple people working on the document and see multiple people working on the document, which makes it a lot easier, especially if you have something where you have a spreadsheet where multiple people are updating it all day long, or a Word document where people are trying to collaborate on it. And you'll be able to see those updates as they go and see what they're editing and what they're adding to it. In addition to that, it allows for that sort of effective teamwork of multiple people working on stuff. So I'm not working on something and then I get out of it and then I'm waiting for my coworker to get off the file so I can go back in and just update this one cell. We're both able to go in at the same time and work on the file at the same time. Going a little bit back to team sites and communication sites. Team sites, again, provide that dedicated space for team members to share resources and updates. You have the information sharing through communication sites. enabling a broader audience, allowing them to be able to get broader information, helps provide tools for announcements and updates. It also has integration with Planner, easily integrates with Planner, integrates with the Power Automate workflows, and then you are able to create custom solution with Power Apps. We have a lot of customers that will go through and create custom Power Apps. They will use SharePoint to sort of serve SharePoint lists or document libraries to serve as the back end. So you do have those sort of capabilities, depending on what your business use cases are. Just a little bit of a conclusion on this. And then these are some links that you can look at. I'll create a PDF out of this deck and send it over to everybody. Are there any questions before I start getting into the demonstration piece? All right, I am gonna take that as a no. So bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna pull up my demo tenant. I've got 2 of them I'm using. And we'll start going through a demonstration of SharePoint. All right, so easiest way to get to SharePoint is our favorite friend in the world, the waffle menu. So you click the waffle menu and you get right to SharePoint. Now I'm going to use, this is one of my demo tenants. I'm using this for a specific reason. Now we're going to switch over to the other one. The reason why I'm showing this is because there's a setting to be able to turn off and on the ability for end users to create their own sites. I just wanted to show you, if you allow end users to create their own site, what it would look like. So if I go to create a site, I click right here and I get brought up with this, and you get the ability to create one of 2 sites, a team site or a communication site. And right here it tells you what each type of site does. Now, one thing I will say, I usually don't recommend letting end users just create SharePoint sites, but again, it totally depends on what your business use case is, what you want your end users to be able to do. If you're looking to have more of curated sort of SharePoint experience, maybe do something where, your admins create sites for end users. If you're looking for it to be more of, okay, we just sort of want everybody to be able to create what they need and be able to collaborate, you let your end users create their own sites. But in this case, you just would create a communication site. Now, we have a lot of templates out of the box that you can use that will allow you to sort of cater your SharePoint experience to what you're looking to do. So if you wanted to, say, go in and create a communication site and you had an event coming up, you could use the event template. There is the human resources. There's all sorts of different templates you can use. In this case, we'll create an event template. And what you get here is it shows you what you're creating, what you get. You use that template. We'll give it a name. In this case, I'm just going to call it special event. Leave it as English, and you create the site. And it just takes a minute. We let the hamsters in the background do their job. And now I have an event site, and it looks pretty good. There's different things you can do with it. So for instance, if I want to update anything on this page or look and feel anything at all, my best friend is going to be the gear up here. So what I can do is I can go through all different elements in here. In this case, maybe we just want to change the look. So we can give it a new theme. I have this theme called Arch that I use across my tenant. And I can click Save and do that. Maybe I don't like the way that looks. Maybe I want to change it. I can give it something else. I can go back to teal. There's different elements that come along with each SharePoint site. So on the main page, you're going to have your top level navigation. You're going to have under here these menus so you can view the page details for this page. You also get some analytics that you can see. So, you know, this is a brand new page. I'm not going to see anything. Can you delete a SharePoint site you no longer follow? No. No, the SharePoint site will still be there, whether you follow it or not. If you have permission to the site, you'll still have access to it and it will still show up in different places. Is that what you're referring to? So like if you go, what's a good example? So you could, let me pull up this one here. So like I'm following these sites. If I unfollow that, it'll just stop showing on my SharePoint page here, but I still have access to it. Yeah, so it will still show on the frequent sites. It'll still show on the frequent sites if you go to it all the time. Like this Midvale school system, I go to it all the time. And I'm not following it because it's not, you know, the star isn't there, but it will still show. Just to get back to here, yeah, you can view some analytics here. This is a brand new site, so I'm not going to see anything. But it will show, I think up to like 90 days. We'll take a look at the other tenant where I've got a little bit more information. But I also got navigation up the top here. These are the individual web parts. So if I click edit here, and I'm a site owner, you don't need to be a SharePoint, full-blown SharePoint admin to do this. You just need to have site ownership. I can modify any of these web parts. So, you know, this countdown here, let's say this is for the leadership conference. I can go here. We call this the slider menu, or at least I do. I think that's actually the official term. We don't have a food ready name for it unless you want to call it the shish kebab menu. But you can edit the different elements here and sort of change different aspects. If I want to change the opacity, if I want to change anything like that, I can do there. If I wanted to add new web parts, I just click on any one of these plus buttons that pop up, and I just get a whole slew of available web parts that I can add to it. So there's different ways to edit your pages. And then I can get ready to publish. I can schedule it to launch. So let's say I'm working on this and I don't want it to launch just yet. I can schedule it to launch by clicking here and going through these different steps. I'm going to pull up my other tenant. There's a lot more stuff going on here. And I just wanted to show an example. So this is what we would call a communication site. This is where we're pushing out a broad scope of information. This is where we are, you know, we have our different news feeds. As you can see, I have a news web part here. I'm pulling information in from different sites within. We have what are called hubs. So you're able to create a hub of sites, so sites that are like-minded. In this case, Midvale School System is one of the hubs. Information technology is a separate hub. If I go here, this is my information technology hub. And we can see here, Midvale School System, this is a communication site. So it has different web elements that I put in here. This is where I'm going to be pushing out a lot of information. Now, if you see here, This is a team site. It looks pretty similar, but you can tell it's a team site because it says private group here. So there's going to be a Teams associated with it. Even when I go to here and go to Teams, see, I've got my help desk here. And if I have this set up correctly, fingers crossed I do. Okay, so Engineering 101, this is a team, but I also have a link within Teams to the corresponding SharePoint site. And if I go to Information Technology, don't have a link to it, but that's fine because I can go here to my Teams. Nope, not Teams. Oh, good. All right, so we're going to do this. We are going to open that in a new window. So I can just open in a new window, and here's the SharePoint site that corresponds with this team. And this is a team site as well. A lot of times at team sites, you're going to see the navigation on the left-hand side where you're going to have different elements that you can point to, but you can also, if I change the look, where am I going? Navigation. May look just like a communication site and vice versa. So you have a lot of that different flexibility. With every SharePoint site that you create, there are certain tools that come along with it. So if I go to my site contents here, I'm going to get some document libraries. A lot of times what you're going to end up getting out of the box is a documents library, the ability to create lists, and usually sometimes an events calendar. I can create new lists and document libraries just by clicking the new here. So if I go click new list, you're going to see, again, I get a whole bunch of templates that I can work from. I can do a blank list as well. I can even copy over an existing list from any site that I might have access to. So if there was, I think, is there a site here that has, so if I wanted to pull the issue tracker from the Midvale school system over to this site, I could. I can also choose a template, a pre-canned template that is already set up. So, if I wanted to do a separate issue tracker from here, I could. And you see it's got all of these columns already set up for me. They're got pre-populated and design choice pills, some different dynamic views, and automatic email notifications. So they do have Power Automate flows built into them already. So if I use that template, I can just call this issue tracker. Engineering, create it. I can have it pop up in the site navigation. And there's my issue tracker. And you can see I've got different views here based on different things. I can go in and tweak this after the fact. If I add a new item, this floating window will pop up. So there's different ways you can do that. I can also go back to my site contents. I can create libraries. And again, we've got different templates. Not as many templates for the document libraries as there are for lists, but you do have the ability to create different templates. So if I had an invoices, a media library, so on and so forth, I can do that. The other thing we have within SharePoint is, and let's see if I've got, God, this is just a quick peek at the back end. Don't mind me. Within SharePoint, you have what is called Stream. So Stream is what we use for viewing videos, multimedia, things like that. So we used to have a whole portal called Stream Classic. Stream Classic got integrated into SharePoint, so now it's Stream on SharePoint. With Stream, what you have is the ability to view videos, share videos, It works within Teams, within OneDrive, within SharePoint, and essentially all it ends up doing is putting your videos in a document library, just like this. And these are just MP4 files. If I click on any of them, they show up in the stream player, and this is just a stock footage of a campus. So you're able to share videos, you're able to embed videos on your pages, you're able to view different things, able to share these throughout your environment. Another thing I wanted to talk about within SharePoint, just briefly, is setting up permissions. If you are creating a SharePoint site, you want people to have specific access, and you're a site owner. You can go to your site permissions, and you'll see you get this information here. You can select how information gets shared. So for instance, on this site currently right now, site owners and members can share files folders in the site. So site owners are going to be the people that run the site. They have full control. Your members are going to be people that have contribute or edit access. But let's say I wanted to make it so that only the site owners can share files, and I want to turn off site requests. I can do that right there. And let's say I have guest access on this site. I can have it, it's set in my tenants so that guests lose access after 60 days. So I can view who has their access expiring. But you also have the ability to do the permissions here. And this is just going into the back end. You see, I've got these three groups. By default, you get these three groups. You get an owners group, a members group, and a visitors group. Owners group are going to have full control. Members are going to have contribute. Visitors are going to have read. Where this is a communication site, usually the access will be heavy on the visitors and a little bit lighter on the members group. If I go over to a team site, so this is my team site, things are going to be a little bit different. I still get this access here, but as you see, because this is connected to a 365 group, for the most part, the permissions would either be managed, the permissions would usually be managed through Teams because it's connected to a team. That being said, you can still grant access to the SharePoint side of things, but you get exactly like you see here. If I click on any of these, you'll see it's got the different elements of the 365 group in it. I can give people access to this site. It doesn't affect what happens in the Teams channel. So just because if I go through and I give, I'm going to use Barrett as an example. I give Barrett access to the site. That doesn't mean he gets access to the Teams channel. It just means he has access to the SharePoint end of things. On the same token, if I go to here and I go through any of these, I can share files with other users. So let's say, I wanted to share out the class policy. I have this whole menu of different things that we're going to talk about. If I wanted to share this file with somebody, I can look and say, okay, these people already have access to it. But let's say I wanted to reshare it out. I can click on here as well. And let's say I wanted to share this with Nestor. I can add a message. Now I got some other options as well. I can click on the link settings. I can click on the ability so that Nestor can edit, can view but not download. So let's say I wanted to have him just be able to view it. I have the ability to set an expiration date. I'm not going to set that. I can click apply and then send, and that's it. I don't have to copy a link, open up Outlook, write an email, send it off. I can just share it out. Same thing with a folder. I can go through I can just share out this whole folder if I want. Again, I can also favorite this. So now I'm going to favorite this file. And as we've seen earlier, if I go to my OneDrive, it shows up right here. So you're able to just favorite it. You don't have to bookmark it, nothing. It all, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, all work together seamlessly. Getting back to here, if I was working on a file and something happened, I can go to version history. This is not going to be much version history because I'm the only one in here, but you'll see I've got this version and I can do different things. I can view it, I can restore it. A lot of times you'll see multiple versions of different files. There's a new setting that just came out for SharePoint environments where your admins can control how many versions get saved. If I go to my library settings, we can take a look at that and be able to see how many versions I currently have set in here. Currently it's 500. So you get 500 versions of a file that will be saved. So that if, especially where you have something, if it's being updated frequently, it's being updated a lot, and somebody goofs something, it's a big spreadsheet, they're able to go in, you're able to go in and change the version of it. You also have the ability to add a shortcut to a file. You can move and copy files like we've seen before. You can set alerts. So you don't necessarily always have to set a whole workflow. Alerts have been around for a long time. You can set alerts on any of these different files. You can also set an alert. Is it going to show on a whole document library? So if you just want to see who's updating what and when, let me uncheck this. This will be for the whole library. You can just set an alert and it will give you an email. This is something I used to do way back in the day. When I had to sort of really keep an eye on certain things, I would do, set an alert, get an email. You can do a text message if you want. Doesn't really work anymore. You can do all changes, anything changes. You can get an instant notification. You can do a daily summary, or it will just give you a summary email of anything that got updated. And then let's say you wanted to get a daily summary at 8 a.m. So when you came in, you could just get your daily summary of whatever's going on in the document library, especially if it's something where people are updating things very frequently. You can also get a weekly summary if you just want to get, a general, hey, this is everything that happened over the last week. You do that, you click OK, and that's it. One thing I would suggest is if you are working with document libraries, and this is something I recommend to everybody, I don't recommend syncing to your desktop. The reason is because I've seen folks run into a lot of issues with syncing to the desktop where, they go to sync to the desktop and somebody uploads a boatload of spreadsheets and now your computer's bogged down. I always recommend doing the shortcut to OneDrive or saving as a favorite. And bear with me 1 second here. Because a lot of time, and especially if, maybe somewhere in the future, I know you're working with a lot of different systems. I would say don't shortcut it, especially if you're looking to maybe merge systems or you're merging SharePoint sites or moving files around. Always just go with the shortcut to OneDrive. As far as lists are concerned, we'll get into that. So we were talking about lists a little bit more. Think of them as a huge spreadsheet. So if I go in to add an item, I can type in, type in test. Test. I can give it a critical priority status of new. I can assign it to folks. This assign to field comes really handy if you're coming up with workflows. which again, Nick Miller will talk about tomorrow, where you can pull from the assigned to field and have it shoot somebody an email. And go on and add all these different elements to it and click save. So now we've got this item that we can work with. You can export this to a CSV, an Excel CSV with schema, or if you're really handy with Power BI, which I am not, you can export it to Power BI, especially if you wanted to sort of fill in information. Also have the ability to create a form. So you have with your list, you have a stock form here, but you also have the ability to create a form and create something that looks really nice. And just bear with me 1 second, because I think I already have one that I created before that I can show you. Yeah, so this is a button I put on my main page where I created a form for my issue tracker. And we'll give this a test. See, I like the issue tracker form list quite a bit. And this is just using the forms that you get with 365. And I click submit. And I get this really cool, hey, thanks for doing that. And then what I can do is go back and then pull up my list as soon as the gear shows up. There we go. I could have also just went to my menu item here. And then it shows up right here. And this is the new item that I just created. All three of them. And you can see, you can click on them and be able to view them. It doesn't pull up in the same form, but it lets you submit in the form and lets you work with it. And so I can go in and edit it and be able to sort of give the user a little bit better experience. And with the form, you can kind of put that anywhere with your environment. So they don't necessarily have to go to the SharePoint site. You can have the form on one site and the list on another site, and it will just route to the list automatically. Yeah, and any questions on that? Anything I've covered? Anything you may have wanted to see that I didn't show? All right, cool.
24, 38, 25.
What was that?
Looks like they went back on mute.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. Yeah, and that's kind of, oh, I did want to show one more thing. I almost forgot. And this is something that comes up whenever folks are getting into SharePoint and they say, well, we have a specific color scheme we want to use. How can we do that? There are ways to do that now. Previously, you had to know how to do JSON, PowerShell, drive your admins crazy. We have the ability now to create a branding site, and you have the ability to create your own branding. I want to show you this because it's new. It's really cool. I like it. If I go to my brand guide site, I have what is called a brand center, and this is something that can be set up within your environment. An admin sets it up, and you can create colors that can be used across your environment. So in this case, I have some fonts that I downloaded. I've got these Roboto fonts that Google put out. I happen to like them. So I made them so that they're available to use across the environment. I also have specific color schemes that I created. So I created this school theme that can be used in addition to the font package. So if it's something where you're looking to, you say, well, we want to use the Alabama color schemes across our SharePoint site. If you set up an issue submission system, are you able to link it to Planner? Probably, but that might be, again, more of like a Power Automate aspect. There's no way, I don't know out of the box how you could do it with a list. But you might be able to push that information to Planner if you so choose. But yeah, you're able to push these out across all your sites. So any of these sites that I have, so information technology, there's this site branding new section. And I can click here. I can create a theme for this site. And what it will do is it'll just pull in for any sites that I have available. I can also copy branding from another site if I put in the URL. If I go back to the main page, so currently right now, this is this purple theme. And as you saw before, I had specific school branding that I used. Nope, that is not what I meant to do. I go back here. I'm going to change the look. If I go to theme, here's the school theme that I can reuse on the site. I do that. I click save. Now it's pulling in this theme that I have set up for my tenant. I can also pull in the font. So as you see here, I've got these available font packages. So this is currently the Microsoft fonts, and this is the one that I have set up for my tenant. I click save, and it will start using that Roboto font. So this is something that I'm starting to show folks, because it's something that does come up quite frequently, especially when, you know, organizations say, well, we want to use SharePoint. We want it to have a consistent look and feel as far as color schemes concerned. The branding center is going to be the way to set that up if that's something you're looking to do. And that pretty much covers everything I have.